The first item is a more general, just how to use some of the tools we've got, the built-in stuff like watching Discourse and Wiki and GitHub. And full disclosure, just a half hour ago, someone said, "Aren't you watching that JIRA ticket?" And I said, "I don't get any emails." And I went and looked and I was watching the JIRA ticket, and we don't understand how watching in JIRA works. It doesn't work or something. I don't know. So, but we know how, I think we know how Discourse watching works. Although come to think of it, like a week ago, I turned on some watching in Discourse and I don't think I've gotten any emails about it. So maybe it's a more systemic problem. How do we want to cover this? What do you want to do, Dave?
Well, let's see.
I can share my screen and show you what I did in Discourse to watch Discourse.
Okay, let's do that because I just realized that I can't seem to. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Why don't you share screen? I will stop sharing. You can start.
Where'd you go? So let's see. I will share. No, this is the.
Folks can chime in. Okay.
All right, so I'm sharing Chrome. So, and if you've been in Discourse, you're likely using the default theme, which I am not. So the appearance is slightly different, but it's the same Discourse. And also, I will probably have controls that you don't, because I am an admin in Discourse, but I won't be using those controls. So one thing you can do is you can go to the categories button, and you can say things like, working groups, architecture coordination. That sounds super interesting. And you can look at the list of topics and see that, in fact, it is super interesting. And you go to the little bell icon up here. And when you click that, you have options of getting emails about stuff in this category. And a common recommendation is to watch first post. And what that means is that anytime someone creates a new post in this category, you will get an email. You can also just watch, which means you'll get notified for all activity about everything. The reason that watching first post feels good is that you'll know about all the new topics that get created. And then for each of those topics, you can choose whether to fully watch that topic. So it sort of gives you a little bit more control over how you're going to get notified about stuff.
Ned, if there is a topic that you like, how do you then watch it more fully?
Right. That's a great question. I'm not sure the answer. Let's go into this one, LTI component in Backstage, right? And underneath, at the bottom of the toolbar, at the bottom of the topic is another bell icon. And this one says normal because it was created, well, it was created before I had started watching this category, but it would say normal anyway if I had visited this topic and then decided, I don't care about LTI. But you can, not only does this say what this means, you'll be notified if someone actually mentions your name or replies to you. But you can open this up and you can change to, I want to be notified about everything. And actually the difference between tracking and notified seems very, very slight, but okay. I think a count of new replies will be shown means if you're actually at Discourse rather, but whatever. So you can go into a topic and you might have watched a topic and decided, yeah, this is now garbage, and you can change it to muted or normal or whatever. So you can control all your notifications that way. Also in your settings, you can, no, not settings. Settings is the thing you can't see. Sorry. In your preferences, you can go to notifications and you can, first of all, you can see what it is you have gotten notified of. These are the notifications you have gotten. And somewhere in here is also a way to control your notifications, preferences, notifications. Good. And then there's a bunch of stuff you can do here to control your notifications. Discourse was authored by nerds and so is highly configurable, but maybe not that understandable.
One thing I'll mention that's kind of useful is the notification schedule here. If you wanted to sort of bundle all your notifications to one time in the day, you can set it so that your notification window is small, and then everything outside of that will set you to do not disturb.
Sorry,
I
which
think you will-
notification window?
Notification schedule under live notifications.
Oh, I see. Right. And I may not have this set properly yet. So I had intended to get emails about things, but it might be that I'm not getting them. Because you
No,
like, I'm not. Okay. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I don't think that is related to what you get emails about. There's the emails section, which decides what you get emails about.
Right.
And it'll bundle up all the notifications into, like, if I choose to get notifications only within a 1 hour time period every day, is it going to send like one big message with all the ones I missed, or is it going to send a bunch of little ones all at once?
I'm not sure. I haven't played with it too deeply. But
Right.
there's also on here the activity summary, which I think will work kind of like you want it to.
Yeah, and to be perfectly honest, I have only started taking control of these notifications very recently, and I may not have them set yet so that they work the way I think they should be working.
Does anyone else have any discourse tips?
Well, I still have the question.
Questions?
Has anyone worked out like getting emails for any of these watches? So I know you just clicked into emails and clicked into notifications. I'm still not seeing it, and I've started watching things and I don't see any. I don't even know where those notifications that I'm supposedly now signed up to get come in outside of if I click on my face, I see the drop down of stuff, and I don't know if those are the notifications that I'm supposed to be looking at, and how and if to get that in email.
So, so what I just read was this thing here. So I had this set to only when away. And right, discourse has this idea that you want pieces of toast popping up in your face because discourse is important and it's the center of your world, right? And you're either there or you're away. That's not my model of discourse. My model of discourse is, it is never my home. I never want you to put toast in my face. But I had it set for only when away, which might be why it feels like I am not getting notifications about things, because as I always have discourse in a tab. In fact, I have it in a pinned tab in Chrome because I do try to visit it. So discourse might think I am always here. So I am going to change this to always.
Yeah.
And
And
see how it goes.
always is what I have set, and I do get emails when I expect them, which is a lot, but I don't miss things.
I have learned something by sharing my screen and teaching you how to do something.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so for others, I have also switched it to always, so we will see if that fixes things. And I rarely have this tab open, so I'm not sure if it just considers me there because it feels like it, or
It
but
may also be dependent on what you're watching, Robert.
Well, someone can send the PM to.
I think the other thing on Discourse worth mentioning is the bookmarking and reminders trick. I don't know if you do this, Ned, but I know Dave uses this. And
I think I did some bookmarks very, very early on, but I have not been using them. So if someone else wants to take over.
Yeah, well, actually, if you just go to any message,
right.
sorry, it's real quick.
it's
That's
very
okay.
easy to, yeah.
Yeah,
I'll continue to drive. Let's
Thank
go
you.
back through all the places I didn't mean to show you and then end up at the thing. Here's the
Sure.
thing.
there's a thing. All right, so if you click on the, yeah. And this is the thing that saves me because I'm a very lazy person. No, it's so this is my guilty confession that a lot of times when I see things that I could answer, but it's going to take me time to answer, and I really hope someone else answers in the meanwhile. Or I'm just in the middle of a lot of work and I can't do it until the next day. You can set the bookmark, you can set a reminder for a specific period of time, like say, you'll look at it on Monday or the next day. These are actually really good presets that they have. And then you will get the notification reminder, but you will get it, in the future, and you can check back in on the thread and then try to help it. So this is my favorite thing. This is actually my favorite one feature of Discourse is having this.
Cool. Anything else about Discourse?
Bookmarks, do you use them? Do you find them helpful?
I have not been using them. Dave does. Apparently.
Yeah, I use them with the reminder feature mostly. I don't use them as like a, although I think now that we've talked about them a little bit more, I think I'm considering using them for like, I guess I rely on topics I'm following as my way of sort of bookmarking things I don't want to miss, right? So like anything where I've got notifications turned on, I'm now getting emails. So now I've sort of like bypassed Discourse's other features with respect to like not losing information about a topic I care about. But the reminder thing is helpful because then it'll just send you an email at some future. For me, it'll send me an email at some future time to say you wanted to come back to this.
And somewhere are the bookmarks, right?
If you go to your face,
My face. Oh,
it's one of the tabs. Yeah. But
Okay. So any other okay.
Yeah, the last thing I'll mention is that if you do Shift ? You can see all the keyboard shortcuts. And there are a lot of them, and I'm a keyboard maniac, so I like to know that these exist and that I can use them, and that's how I navigate it most of the time. In particular, go to unread is like a really quick way for me to just like catch up on the things that I care about. Or that I might have missed. Like between unread and new, I can get to most of the things that like are relevant to the things I care about. Once you've set up sort of like watches on the spaces you care about, new and unread is like the way to like sort of consume it in a sane way, because it just gives you a list of things. And when you actually go through them, it removes them from the list. So that's how I kind of work with it. I think that's all I have.
Okay.
I'm stopping sharing for just a moment.
Okay, so all right, if no one else has Discourse tips or questions, I guess the next thing on the list is the wiki.
The wiki.
Yes, Confluence, our favorite friend.
How do people keep track of stuff like that? There's watching, right?
Yeah.
Do people
Yeah.
watch?
I do.
Yeah, I watch specific pages and their subpages, and usually it's kind of insane to try to watch a space unless it's a very quiet space.
I never watch space.
Yeah.
So what,
Yeah, here I can share. I'll share my screen. It's nice to have visuals. All right. Make it a little bigger. Yeah, so I mean, I think like I'll usually watch like a page and its subpages. The way you do that is on any given page, there's an eyeball. And you can click on the eyeball to watch the page or watch everything in this space. I almost never do watch everything in this space, but I do, for example, watch this page, which will send me notifications about changes to this page and changes to any of the pages underneath it, is I believe how that works. Another hand, so and in terms of where to watch, I think a lot of the new activity has been in this community space because we've kind of rallied around it, not necessarily as it was originally intended, but it's where like all the working group information is. Ned recently added organizations as a top level category, so that you can sort of start tracking the different organizations. If you're in an organization that's not one of these two organizations, consider adding a thing. TCRL, for example, uses this, like we have a what we are, where our engineering team is. You can kind of like see who we are and kind of introduces people. So it's a nice way to figure that stuff out. I haven't seen what you've done in the 2U space yet. No.
you need to
yeah.
look,
Yeah. The 2U blended development projects.
which isn't going to stay there, but
That's fine. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, as of yesterday, anybody can archive pages that is a member. So if you see things that are out of date, you can now clean them up more easily. Is there anything, I don't know if there's any other things to mention.
so I'll mention that one of the things I do is you can subscribe to a daily digest of the wiki, and once a day you will get an email of all of the changes in the wiki. And you get an email that looks like this. It's only got orange on it because I had to search for the terms to find one of them. But you get an email like this that shows you every change made with a link to the diff of the changes or to the page. And I don't always look at the emails, but when I do, occasionally I find something useful to know.
How do you turn that on?
That I think, as usual, go to your face, and under settings, I don't know, watches, maybe, I forget. I should have refreshed my memory about how to do this. Email, maybe. Yeah, subscribe to daily updates. Now, do not ask me why I cannot turn this off, because I do not know.
It's because you have to edit, because this whole thing is one big form.
Good.
Yeah.
Do not ask me why they have an explicit edit button on a bunch of checklists, but okay.
Yeah.
So yes, you can subscribe to a bunch of stuff, including daily updates. And early on in the decoupling process, if you ever got an email from me that said, hey, it looks like you made a wiki page, but maybe it should have been in the other wiki. The way I was doing that was by looking at these daily digest. Because I get 2 each day because we have the public wiki and now a 2-week private wiki.
So the docs.edX.org search Google thing is still set to be able to search the wiki, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Should we try it?
Sure.
Yes. Unfortunately, the names. This is a Confluence problem, unless they fixed it. They might have fixed it. I put in a request.
So I haven't looked at how this is set up in a long time. I don't seem to be getting a ton of wiki pages.
Yeah, I think a lot of the wiki pages are still behind. You need to be a logged in member and not publicly readable, which is a thing that we want to fix, but requires thought.
We should actually put docs.edX.org/search as a top level thing. That might be a way for people to find information, even though it was always a little wonky and maybe has fallen on hard times since the split.
Yeah, you and I should talk about adding this to docs.openedx.org.
Yeah,
and like having it.
Right. Especially since with the split, the edX stuff is likely not visible here because it's in private.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. But yes, we should. And by the way, this is a Google site search that we configured to just search, these 10 different things. And Google site search is a thing that Google doesn't seem to care much about, which is part of the reason why it's wonky and hard to keep up to date. But also why it can only look at public information because it's literally Google finding it.
Okay. Anyone else have comments, questions, suggestions relating to the wiki? Okay. Or rants. This is a place for rants too. No, okay. Next. GitHub.
Other people are probably more familiar with how to monitor GitHub natively than I am.
So I don't know, like the 2 schools I've seen in GitHub are, one, be very, very careful about your notifications and prune them all the time. And 2, just let the fire hose go into Gmail and use email filtering to do all the hard work of actually sorting out what you want. I'm curious where, like, do you folks use GitHub notifications? Yes.
Yeah, I'm pretty aggressive about what I get GitHub notifications on because that limits the amount of email I then have to sort through. I think github.com/watching is a very useful URL to know. It shows you which repositories you are watching and what level you're watching them at. So for example, I think I have 9 repos. I can actually share my screen so you guys can see what I'm actually watching. So I have a handful of repos that are pretty low traffic that I am watching. For example, I watched the edX open source process working group because issues created there are of interest to me. So this will notify me on issues and pull requests in these repos. And then I have a bunch that are custom, like I care about when Xmonad has new releases. So I'm watching only when new releases are made because they use GitHub releases as a way of notifying people. I I forget what I'm watching in edX platform. I think on edX platform, I'm only watching new issues are getting created because I turned on issues at some point without telling anybody, and I wanted to see if new issues were being created. So I use this as like how I ensure I don't get too much email. It doesn't solve for if somebody mentions me, and you still get like a lot of there's a lot of notifications here that don't all email me. But this helps me limit the amount of stuff I get in email.
So I am on the other side of the fence. And I can share my screen. And I've never been to this page before in my life. And I noticed that there's a beta of suggestions of things I might want to unwatch because these 10 repositories might be causing unwanted notifications. And I don't know how GitHub decides that because I am watching 539 repos. And so why are these 10 special? Don't know. But I get email notifications about every repo in the edX and Open edX organizations when an issue or a pull request is created or modified. And I use email filtering to control that, which we can get to later.
Actually, no, it might be worth just digging into now, unless
The other thing that might be useful, I don't know if everybody uses their like if their GitHub account is their personal plus work account or if they have a separate work account, but the notifications in Gmail and how to do notification routing is a useful thing to go to. So if you if you go back to that watching page.
Yeah, by the way, I've never been to my GitHub inbox page either.
Yeah, I don't.
Didn't even know it existed.
Yeah.
I love that page.
I don't use it at all. So maybe you could
Never
talk
saw
about how you use it.
What did you want to see here, Finu?
Go to change notification settings. And I just wanted to show people this and in particular the custom routing.
Notifications.
And then at the top, you'll see a custom routing button. This is helpful because then you can choose different email addresses for different things. So like my personal orgs or personal things go to my personal email, and then like work related orgs go to the work email, which is helpful when I'm like forking other people's repos to make tiny fixes or something.
Well, the odd thing about this page for me is that I do have some notifications that go to my nidbatchelder.com email address, but they're not listed here. I'm not sure why.
Right.
And it is in fact my primary and default email address, which might be why it's not on the other page, because it's just the default for when the other page hasn't.
Oh yeah. Oh, the other super helpful thing is if you go to notifications real quick, turning off automatically watch repositories for me is very valuable. For Ned is the opposite because he wants all the emails. But like for me, I want to be very discerning about which things I'm watching. So I don't want to automatically watch things. So I tend to have that be off. And then obviously choosing how you get notified here via email or on GitHub or both is personal taste. But this is where that stuff is.
I am getting notified on GitHub, but I never look at the places that GitHub puts those notifications, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
I don't know that you can avoid getting notified on GitHub though, right? Like it's not.
You can uncheck that box.
Oh, you can uncheck on GitHub. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought email was just the.
I'm not changing anything because it's not broken.
Yeah.
Cool. And by the way, I am not familiar with this page either, so I'm glad you looked at it. I might want to come back later and consider.
Yeah, you can tweak sort of where you're getting things, and it's helpful.
Yep. Alex has his hand up.
Yeah, this is great and really helpful. I want to It really is. Sorry, I'm not trying to lead off with a compliment and be like, you guys, this stinks. No, this is great. I want to ask the higher level question of like, how, okay, you have your notifications configured and everything, right? Like, how do you manage your lives? Like, how do you, like, do you carve off, do you have a 30-minute block on all of your calendars that's like, go check all of the things, or do you let the fire hose just come and as you get notifications in email or Slack or wherever you read them? Like, is it ad hoc or do you segment your days?
I do not have a specific time set aside. I feel like my day is kind of like cycle among the things to check, which is not great. I would not recommend it. Some days I feel like an air traffic controller of notifications. Like I desperately need to make sure nothing crashes. So I need to look at everything all the time.
Mhm.
Yeah. Recently, so I had been historically, I think, in the same boat as Ned. The thing that I've changed recently is that I've actually stopped looking at anything that could have notifications be the beginning of my day. So I don't look at my email or Slack or Discourse or GitHub until after I've decided what I'm going to do and do some of it. And then once like that comes to, like it comes to sort of some sort of stopping point, I need a review, I need a something, and that's when I'll go look through my sort of like reactive stuff now. And that seems better for me because like there's always something to do in some notification somewhere. And so in order to progress on like larger things, I need to have that kind of modality at the moment. I tend to change what I do pretty regularly. I don't think I've landed on like a perfect way to work. I just like work based on what my needs are at the moment. But I find that particular structure to be really helpful so that you don't get stuck in like responding land.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I
will prioritize looking at things that I feel like either are very active these days. Like during the initial wiki decoupling, I made sure to look at the wiki daily digest every morning and really think about each line. These days, sometimes I'll just delete it without even opening it because it's been really quiet and or it's been impossible to decide what to do with it. So it's just like fun. If feels like there's been a lot of OAuth activity, I'll look at where the OAuth stuff is coming in.
Yeah. One thing you'll notice from like the things that I've been suggesting is that I tend to try to route everything to email. So that email and Slack are the only two things that I have to look at. Slack is one of the few things I don't route to email just because like it's its own beast. But like I tend to route everything else through email if I can. And that way, if I go through my email, I know that I haven't missed most things, which is really helpful from a like personal confidence that like I'm working on the right things and like not losing important things. And as a community, we've been pushing more people to go from Slack to Discourse for things that are substantive. So like using Slack for coordination just in time is basically treating it more like the synchronous office, whereas Discourse is the asynchronous space. So I operate that way. Like if it's important, I should have gotten an email about it. If it's in Slack, it's a conversation and I may have missed it, and that's okay. It's obviously harder to do based on the teams you're working with and like how they operate. So that tends to, I tend to shift that perspective based on who I'm working with and what their operating mechanisms are.
By the way, we didn't have in this list, how do you manage Slack notifications? And
I mean, we should definitely talk about Slack. I'm sure we all have strategies.
I guess one thing I want to mention, just because it's the sort of exact opposite of Neil's approach, is that I tend to not try to make email the central point of everything. I actually try to set aside a time for like, okay, and I'm going to go through my GitHub notifications at this time. On like in like the mornings, I will start my mornings with GitHub notifications. because those are for me usually the most urgent sort of, I have to turn things around, and I have segmented times to go and do the like forums. Like forums will usually be like the last thing I hit in the day, and I will set aside like, whether it's like the last hour of my day or whatever, to specifically like look and respond to forum posts, and it's sort of time. It's sort of capped off by how much time is left in the day, and so yeah, it's a different approach. But for me, it helps to segment things, because when I subscribe to everything in email and look through my email, to me, it's kind of it's kind of normal thing of like, for me, of like what things I should and shouldn't reply to. Whereas if I have segmented times for like the different types of tasks, like these are my code review hours and these are my sort of my respond to forums hours, it makes me feel a little bit more sane.
Yeah, I mean, and like I think there's definitely different approaches. Like I tend, as a result of me shoveling everything through email, I can get up for like 50 to 100 messages in a day, and that's not abnormal. But I've gotten pretty good at like doing a first pass triage of like, these are notifications that I like can read the like summary line and get everything I need out of, and I can archive those. And then I go through like, these are things that need response, and I can like group together like, this conversation happened in the OpenEdX wiki, and this one happened in Slack, in like a discourse, and this one is happening in a PR. And I can like, if I've seen all of those, then I can kind of figure out where I want to go with those things and combine those pieces of information. So like, but yeah, I think it's not the only way to work. Like the other way of just having separate times for each of those things can be very helpful. I do that for reviews, where like, if I have a bunch of reviews that come into my inbox, I will just archive the messages knowing that I have reviews, and then I'll set aside time to do like, go through all the things that people have requested a review on. But to me, the email is like just a way of like absorbing the general, like the way that things are moving. And then I'm like, okay, I know that there's a bunch of stuff happening in discourse, so I should set aside some time for discourse. Or I know there's a bunch of things happening in PRs, I should set aside time for GitHub.
You can get the overview.
Yeah, exactly. It's literally just seeing the level of activity in those places. And then like, I can schedule time for them.
Yeah, one of my problems with email is I'll see a message in my inbox, and it's like some comment on some OF that's gotten very contentious, and I'm like, all right, I better wait on that because it's going to require some real thought. And then I eventually get to it, and it's like someone saying, thanks, looks good. And like, I wish I could know like which are the meaty emails and which are like the like, okay, I can just get that emails, but yeah, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, I don't have a good way around it, because sometimes it's like, I see a PR and I click through and it's like 3 lines. I'm like, great, ship it. And I'm back in my email and it doesn't mess with my workflow. And other times it's like, you click through and it's like 30 files changed with like 14 contentious changes. And you're like, just back away slowly.
So I'm aghast at the idea of getting 5,200 emails that you need to like even just give cursory attention. That
Filters.
Yeah, absolutely.
Filters. Yeah. So I'm dying. It seems like the thing is, once you've got all of your fire hoses combined into email, now you start using some magic to kind of like get those down to what you think might be the important ones, right?
Yes.
So in terms of time, we have 15 minutes. So I think we can do filters or we can do Slack, but we probably cannot do both, I am going to guess. So I'm inclined to go with filters. Anyone else? All right.
Filters.
Agreed.
And also, real quick before Ned goes into filters, full disclosure, I mostly don't have filters. And that's just the crazy way that I do it. I think filters are a very sane thing to do.
Well, the thing is, like, Fanil, you explicitly limit your incoming fire hose to the 50 to yeah.
Right.
So even so, whereas Ned, I don't know how many hundreds of messages you get a day.
I don't either because they don't all go into my inbox. And by the way, I have Gmail set up to not tell me how many unread emails I have. Because there's unread emails. I don't care how many there are. That's just anxiety I can get out of my face.
Oh, for Neil, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Neil said 50 to 100.
Yeah, it was not 5,200. That would be
Okay, all right. I was just like,
Yeah.
I'm sitting there thinking, oh my
I also
God.
heard 5,200.
More manageable.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so this might be a topic for another time, but there's tool usage, and then there's separately, like from an architectural perspective, are there places in Confluence that people watch, or categories that people find especially useful? We don't have to cover that right now, but that's one of the things that I was wondering. Like for me, repos, OpenNX proposals is like one of the few repos that I actually watch.
Yeah.
Just to keep tabs on it, and then I unsubscribe from things.
Specific
where
PR
I
and things,
don't
yeah.
actually care about that.
So now that we use GitHub issues and projects to track work, some of those repos could be useful to watch. So I mean, I know that, for instance, Archbomb now is tracking work in issues. So you might want to watch the repo that holds those issues.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I watch the edX open source working group, is that like I like to see what issues mostly Net is creating, and what
you
they're
see all
thinking
those
about.
tasty private links flying by.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for a lot of those too, like I'll subscribe to certain repos for the duration that they're sort of in like the formative days, I guess, or when there's a lot of crazy activity going on. And then like once things stabilize more, you can always subscribe to them. But I don't know of any general sort of yeah, okay, let's actually, folks, we should probably, I'll leave a list. I'll leave a blank space for where we can put useful repos to watch. Okay, 12 minutes. How much filtering wisdom can we get in 12 minutes, Dad?
I don't know. I mean, I can tell you what I do for filtering and how I do it. If that would help. I don't know if there are any other filterers here to talk about their techniques.
I guess just one quick note is I used to get like lots of messages going to, different folders, and decided that that's so not helpful to me. So I'm still wondering, like, okay, there's how to filter and get things into folders, great, but then I guess to your day, like, you have way too many messages that you could actually do anything with. So what do you do?
What do I do? Well, the first thing is that most of the notifications that I get from GitHub, so my filters are set up. The big thing is star the ones that I probably want to take a look at, and don't star the ones that I probably don't want to look at, and move all the GitHub notifications into either a code reviews or an issues folder, depending on whether it's a code review or an issue. And when I get, so right now I have 88 messages unread in my code reviews folder. And I can share my screen if you want. My code reviews folder looks like this right now. And right now on my screen are 2 starred messages, and all the rest are unstarred. And *T selects all the unstarred and hash deletes them. And I've like very quick to say, like, right, I'm not actually going to look at all of those. Occasionally a word will pop out at me of an unstarred message, and I'll like dig into it. But for the most part, I delete them. And I might eventually change my filters to literally just not keep those messages instead of keeping them unstarred. But for now, that's the way I'm doing. And then you can see that there are labels on the ones that are left, including things like stuff where a release has been mentioned, stuff that looks like a revert, changes to catalog.info files, because that's a new thing that I'm interested in and I want to see how that's flying by, places where I was tagged explicitly, repos that are owned sort of in my sort of ownership bubble, either formally or informally, repos that at least I used to be the only person working in. So I want to know if like there's an intruder. Fanil, you're not an intruder. That's just the way it had been labeled.
I mean, I am an intruder, but now I've been around long enough that you've come to accept that I'm gonna stay.
Yes.
Are the stars automated then? And what do you?
Yes, the stars are part of the
automate?
filter.
Okay.
Yeah.
What does star mean? Or like just an example of what gets starred? Like Robert will put them here.
For me, star means, well, I think, well, it doesn't mean it's going to get a label because this one doesn't have a label, but it's still starred. So I'm not quite clear why that one still has a star. The way, I've got 58 different filters running here, and they're created by Python. The filters are created by Python code rather than being hand managed. So some of them can get kind of elaborate, not as elaborate as I wish I could make them. But for instance, there's a thing that looks like this. If it mentions waffle or configuration model, then label it toggle. That's back when toggles were interesting. Things like that. I have a bunch of things that, I know it's been merged if it says into master or into open-release. That helps me see like, oh, there's a pull request that might have been interesting, but now it's been merged, so maybe it's too late. So, I missed it. Oh, well. Stuff like that. But they do get kind of elaborate, like getting rid of all the bots. I don't want to see any bot traffic. So there's the names of all the bots I know about, and I'll just delete those messages.
Okay. Yeah, it was some of the starits. I was trying to look at what you star. Because basically, if you can delete everything that's not starred.
Mm-hmm. And the way I create the filters is with this tool that I wrote when I was dealing with this problem. And it gives me sort of a DSL that says things like, if it's from no reply spam digest at google.com, then say that it is not spam and mark it as important. That's because anyway. If it's from notifications at github.com, then skip the inbox, which is what keeps it out of my inbox. And because this is nested within that, then if it's a notification from GitHub and it's to me specifically, star it. And that might be one of the reasons why that one was starred. But if it goes to mention at noreply.github.com, then put the @nebbat on it. And this is something that GitHub does. They use specific CC addresses or to addresses to indicate why you are getting the email, specifically so that you can filter the emails based on the reason that GitHub is sending you the email. And, it gets elaborate from there. And I don't know if anyone else is interested to understand this crazy thing I made, but it helps me, which is a tagline you could put on almost any side project of mine.
And you just run this thing locally? Is that how you?
So I run this once, it generates an XML file. I go to Gmail, I delete all my filters, I import from the XML file, and I have filters.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ah.
Right. This is just a tool to make the XML that Gmail wants.
And you just accept that weird period where you don't have any filters and everything's just going to your inbox for like.
So there are some caveats about how to do that step right, which is unfortunate. It's one of the limitations of Gmail filtering, that you have to be a little bit careful about that. But yeah.
Yeah, doing this manually and building out the filters you want. I think it's really good point you made, Ned, about like GitHub has really, really good mail headers
Yeah.
you can get a lot of information out of their mail headers and use them to filter things how you want.
Right. And by the way, one of them is that they use the mailing list email header name with the name of the repo that's being sent to you. And so you can filter based on the repo also. So I can put an OEP label on everything from the OEP repo because it's marked as being from the mailing list, openedxproposals.openedx.github.com. So they've done some very nice things with the email headers.
Which is okay. I guess it's super awesome to do this. I don't understand why GitHub notifications themselves are so miserably poor at filtering.
Yeah,
It's a different team.
But by the way, one of the weird things that GitHub will not tell you about in a filter or in a header is this a pull request or is this an issue?
I mean, because pull requests are issues. I mean,
Yeah,
or,
I know,
or
I know, but and which is why my filter is that if it has the text paren issue number, then it's an issue. Otherwise, it's a pull request because that's the only way I could figure out how to tell the difference between the two. It's ridiculous. Any other questions about the filtering and all of that? It does mean that I get labels along the side. So when I feel guilty for not reviewing things that people are tagging me on, I can click the @nedbat and see what people have literally tagged me on and try to be more responsive.
And you also don't really do any Slack to mail or mail to Slack things, right?
No. Any questions? We're almost out of time. And I want to show you one more thing.
Yeah.
This is a summary of the last 7 days of pull request activity on the OEPS repo, and I find it a very helpful way to keep up to date with what's going on. And this is produced by the other side project that I linked down below called Dingy. And it tries to be very compact, but provides you with the information you need, and everything is a link off to whatever, like what was the helpful nuance that Robert liked. We can click it and we can go and see the comments and catch up on things. So it helps me stay on top of stuff. I find it interesting to have a dinghy for the TQL engineering board. So I know what TQL's up to, just like they watch my board to know what I'm up to. And this is something that we can set up to do other types of things. I just recently set up like what's the last 3 days up on the front end repos to try to understand how those things are flowing. And we can set up more.
How often is this refreshed?
I have it running on a daily cron GitHub action. But it's configurable. I use 1 day, 3 day, 1 week. 3 day is so that on Monday I know what happened on Friday. And the 1 days are for the rest of the weekdays. But I mean, you could do a year's worth of retrospective if you wanted to.
You don't want to add that feature of like work week?
On work day? No.
Yeah.
Maybe. Any questions that I can help people with? We should maybe do another one of these days.
Yeah, I think another one to we still got Slack to go, and I think maybe more the higher level or like organization channels. But yeah, thank you very much. And I think this was really great. So thank you for all the screen sharing.
Sure.
The video. And yeah, so I will I'll send out the recording and I'll write up some notes.
Very
That was brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys so
Thank
much.
you all.
Really helpful. Thank you.
Take care.